Jim Chastain is with us today. He is an attorney with the Oklahoma Criminal Court of Appeals. I hope I got that right. Internet and print film critic, a cancer survivor, a published poet, and you're here today to talk about I Survived Cancer But Never Won the Tour de France, which was inspired obviously by
my 5-year cancer journey, and just going through this, writing along the way as I was experiencing the trials and tribulations of a changed life, and so that's how this book came to be.
Now, you said in the introduction that you ended up just sending out monthly reports to everybody. Obviously, this is not all of the monthly reports that you sent out.
Right. As I was very ill, people would be wanting to know what was going on, and I would send out a monthly update. Jim update is what I called them, and it was just an attempt to keep me from having to tell the same stories over and over again, which every time you tell someone you really loved about what was going on, it takes energy away from you. So I would just kind of keep them updated, try to keep those upbeat and funny, as gives me a little bit permission to tell the full story as long if I make people laugh, and so that's what I did. And people began asking me, you need to turn this into a book, and that's easier said than done, but I started thinking about it at some point in time as we were going through it.
And obviously you didn't put every monthly thing included in here, so you just went, what, the highlights or the lowlights?
Right. I tried to pick out the craziest moments of my journey, and I thought, no one wants to know everything that happened to me. That's really not what this book is about, but let's just look at the highlights, some of the funniest, most outrageous moments. And I always knew them whenever I would just kind of be going through it and go, wow, can you believe this really happens to somebody? And I'd think, that will be a chapter. And sometimes mostly they're very funny. Some of them are not. I think that one of my ideas about the book is just make them laugh, and then I can tell, more of the story, because otherwise you don't want a somber book.
Now, each chapter is accompanied by a poem. Were the poems written about the same time, or did you go back and write a poem to reflect each of these segments? I
journal poetry, and so those poems were all written during the battle at different times. And what I tried to do is, after a chapter, if I had a chapter that was mostly comedy, is I'd try to bring down the pace of a little bit with a poem that reflected on it, or if I have a chapter that gets a little bit serious, then let's try and just switch it a little bit, the pace, and pick those really intentionally to try and make a dramatic story all the way through, because obviously at the end of this book I lose my arm. It's on the last page that actually happens, and I didn't really I wanted to keep kind of a narrative arc going that kept people thinking about the drama, what's going to happen here, what's going to happen here, and the poems help to do that, I think.
Well, I found some of the incidences very, as you said, very funny, but there were also a number of points, that were very moving. One that I was thinking of was you were talking about working late when one of your the fellow staffers in the appellate court got laid off, and you had a choice to acknowledge that or do something else.
Right. That was just one of those moments where I saw somebody and I thought, she had basically lost her job, and I was thinking I could either engage her or not engage her right here, right now. And I had the cancer thing going on. She had the lost job, and I thought, let me just have a real conversation with this person. And we did, and we ended up having a great talk, which we wouldn't have had otherwise. And I think that my cancer experiences have allowed me to do that with people. Maybe I'm a little bit more approachable, and they think, God, this guy's gone through this stuff. Surely I can tell him, this. And so that's been great. It's great for conversations, and I like to talk to people. So.
Well, do you feel like the journaling that you did before you contemplated putting this into a book, obviously it helped keep everybody updated, but do you think that was a help to you personally?
I really was journaling to make it through. You know, I had with no intentions of writing a book or doing anything with it except for, you know, just to tell stories, and this is my way of trying to make sense of my life. And so it was something that helped me really get through it. And sometimes that gets really dark, and I don't put all those in a book, obviously, but they're the sort of things that you can write about, and then once you write them, you feel like, oh, okay, well, I've got that off, and you know, now things are better.
Right. Well, you start off obviously with the discovery that you have cancer, and then you go right into your menage a trois, which I thought was very interesting. Actually, for the folks who haven't read the book yet, it's not really as bad as it seems. But you were talking about something that you had to go through that ended up being a comedy scene.
Right, it was just an awkward moment where I was being fitted into a kind of a body mold so I could go through radiation. I'm literally just have my shorts on, and I end up having 3 or 4 just very attractive women, you know, that are helping squeeze me into this mold, and I have all these, you know, jokes going through my mind that I want to say to them, but I'm thinking they're going to be pointing a huge radiation machine at me, and maybe they've had a bad menage a trois experience in their past.
Right. They've got all the power, and you don't want to push it.
I kind of stayed quiet.
Right, right. So, well, I find that very helpful. That I mean, you're dealing with really horrific experiences, but being able to laugh about it a little bit, and I think conveying to us that's just part of what you do. I mean, regardless of what's going to happen next, at that point it was kind of funny that these 3 good-looking women were trying to shove you into something. I've just been given a signal where our time is up. I want to thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Jim Chastain has been telling us about I Survived Cancer But Never Won the Tour de France. You can find it at your library and your